everybody. Welcome. My name is Larry Monks. I'm your teacher, Mr. Monks. And I have a young man who is an entrepreneur here in the greater Houston area. I've known him for a long time. And so I want to welcome Blake Pellerin. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And Blake, tell us about your business.
It's called Civil Search Consultants. We're a recruiting firm or recruiting agency. We're focused on placing civil engineers, land surveyors, and CAD technicians and operators for civil engineering consulting firms. Our clients typically have anywhere from 10 employees all the way up to 2,000 employees. We're based here in Houston, so we cover Houston pretty well. We also cover Texas as a whole pretty well, all the metro areas and the smaller towns and cities here and there too. That's our regional focus.
Oh, that's great. Before we get into learning more about your business, tell us a little bit more about yourself. How old are you? Are you married? Do you have a family? Your living situation? And then a little bit about your education and background.
Sure. So I'm 37. I grew up in Houston. I'm a native to Houston. I actually went to St. Vincent de Paul down the street from St. Thomas Episcopal, I believe, right?
Yep, just right up the road. Yeah.
Maryland area. So I went to St. Vincent de Paul, then St. Thomas High School, then A&M, studied political science. I met my wife after college, and we got married in 2014, just celebrated 10 years. We have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. And I think that covers most of those questions, right?
Yeah, I think it does. How old are they and what are their names?
So Benjamin is 3.5.
Yeah.
Andrew is 2, and Madeline is 3 months old.
So, man, you have a young family and you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And you live up in North Houston, just outside the city.
Yeah. We're in Conroe, technically, by address anyway, but actually technically we're not inside city limits, so we're Montgomery County residents.
Okay. But a lot of your customers, like you said, are in the greater Houston area and throughout Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're buying your house, right? You're not renting.
Yeah, we bought it in December of 23 and then sold our house down in Houston shortly thereafter.
Oh, that's awesome. Way to go. Okay, so your background, I know your education, you're an Aggie, which is always a great thing, gig 'em, and political science. But what about the education and the work experience that got you to become an entrepreneur in what you do?
Yeah, so I came out of college and started in outside sales and kind of a shipping and logistics company, a small family-owned group here in Houston, and found some success there. But my mom was in staffing and recruiting for decades. Your sister,
my sister,
for decades, and so there was kind of an influence there to draw me to recruiting, and so I started in recruiting about a year and a half after college in 2011, and kind of worked with some different companies until I landed at one where we started working with civil engineers and civil engineering consulting firms, and we liked doing that, and it seemed like that we liked to do it so much that we decided we wanted to focus exclusively on it. So my boss and I actually left and formed our own company in 2017 in order to serve that need in that market exclusively. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. Yeah.
Oh, great. So since 2017, you've been working in this market with your own business. Okay. What I need to find out from you now is describe your ideal customer. Your common customer, but your ideal company. Who's going to call you, and how does the business work?
Yeah, so engineering consulting firms that do civil infrastructure type work. These are civil engineering firms that work for like cities, counties, the Department of Transportation, but also for private developers and private utility companies. And these consulting firms, my clients, will design and also help construct the infrastructure that we drive on, the pipes that bring the water to your house, the water treatment plants that treat the water that then go to your house, the roads. They make sure that the roads are designed in such a way that the water goes off the road, and then they design all the the storm drains that then send it out to the the Houston Ship Channel here in Houston. That's where most of our water is drained to. So those are the types of people that I work with on a regular basis. The clients are the engineering consulting firms, and I help them find good professionals who can do that kind of work for them, so they can serve their clients.
Well, now,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I want to. You made me think of two things. One, you have to be able to access all these engineers who are coming up, and the best of the best to fit your clients' needs. So, how do you find these engineers? How do you get that pool, that resource?
We've been building our own database for quite a long time. Since 2017, I guess. And so we've got probably 50 or 60,000 records in there now of people that do this kind of stuff. Generally speaking, in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so we use that, and we use, like, LinkedIn is a big tool that we use to be able to identify people who do this kind of work too. They have, various paid levels of accounts for recruiters specifically with LinkedIn. So, so we use that. And then we use some other resources to help find contact information.
Right.
Here and there. But on the whole, a lot of it's through also networking too. I'm involved with some local professional associations specifically for land surveying and highway engineers, for transportation engineers. So those are two particular groups that I'm involved with here in Houston. One's called the Texas Society of Professional Surveyors.
Right.
The other one's called the American Society of Highway Engineers.
Okay.
Those are two groups I'm involved with as well, where I interact a lot with these people.
Well, and that's great. So you're able to get the access. Why would a client want to work with you, a recruiter, rather than trying to do it on their own?
Sure. So one thing, it's a lot of work to be, if you make that a full-time job. Smaller companies don't necessarily have a strategy, or some smaller companies won't have a strategy,
right?
Or even people at all to focus on this kind of stuff. So we're kind of an obvious option for people like that don't have any kind of strategic, approach or funding to actually pour into it, the function of recruiting itself. But with larger companies too, I'd say that we can serve as kind of an additional resource to the work that they do too. For us in particular, we're pretty niche focused, and we're based in a particular market where there's probably only 2 or 3 or 4 other recruiters that work this type of market, like these type of people, in this geographic region, this geographic area. So.
Well, and that goes right into my next question for you. Who are your competitors? You said you don't have any. You really don't have any. What is that? You said 2, 3, or 4, maybe.
Yeah,
who are your competitors?
So any staffing and recruiting firm, I guess, technically could be our competitor, if they decide they want to dip their toe into the civil infrastructure space. But there's 2 that come to mind in particular that do kind of exactly what we do. At least the space that we work in the geographic area. One's a big company out of the UK who are very aggressive in their approach, and they're kind of venture capital backed, and they have a lot of money. So they have a lot of funding to pour into the people that work in this market, which usually means lots of sales calls, lots of recruiting calls.
Right.
And so that's one competitor of ours. And from them, I've learned, to treat people, I guess, kind of the opposite deal, because I hear people the effects of people who get calls from them on a regular basis. And it has taught me to treat people like individual persons with inherent dignity who are created that way.
And not just as a piece of meat, objects. Hey, you're going to help me get my next,
widgets to let me get my next deal done. Yeah. So, that's one. And then the other one is actually a guy that I kind of seek to emulate in a lot of ways. He's probably the same type of business that I am, really. And he does a lot of his work down here in Texas, but he's up in Philadelphia, and he's been in the business for 25 years or so. And so I seek to emulate the work that he's done, because he's kind of blazed that trail before me. And and so from him, I learned, perseverance and persistence, and that over time, it could be a really good deal.
And so you have the niche, which is really fascinating. You don't see really a lot of the other staffing agencies because they don't have that specialization to be able to move into doing what you're doing. You kind of have that. And then with that one company. It's just they don't have any of the real personal contact. They don't treat you like a human being. It's very kind of mechanistic, if you will. But then the other person you're looking at, been around for a long time, that's really not going to hurt you in any way. It basically would be better for you. Would you say that?
You mean to be in contact with the other?
Yeah.
guy? Yeah. We're actually we team up on a lot of stuff too, because he'll talk to people that I am not talking to, and I have different clients than he has. So we share some clients, but then we have clients. We have different clients too, and so like for example, I'm talking to a guy that he sent me. I'm talking to a guy on Friday that he sent me that he said, "Hey, I've exhausted our shared clients and some of the other companies down there, and I don't have a great option for them, but I think maybe you do." And I was like, "Yeah, I got a few." And so we'll kind of team up on maybe seeing if there's a deal to be done that way. So that's an advantage too, to being able to actually be aware of and maybe have relationships with some competitors sometimes too, especially if you see eye to eye values wise.
Well, that's a big one. Value. I want to come back to that. You focused on the dignity of the person, something that obviously this giant venture capital backed company lacks. Then you talked about seeing eye to eye. You share values. Where did you develop this? Where did this originate? About this value and dignity of the person and all of that?
Yeah. Well, clearly, I mean, our faith, our Christian faith, can kind of shine some light on this area, because obviously we in the Catholic and Episcopalian or Anglican traditions will definitely recognize that life has inherent dignity and that people are born with it and created by God. So, when you have that kind of view and that kind of perspective in your regular business dealings, then it kind of necessitates that you treat people like persons and not like objects or widgets. And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's from that tradition, from that faith is where it would derive for me.
So you're bringing your faith into what you do, into your work. I mean, obviously with your family and other people, but you're actually living it on the job. Yeah, it's kind of like if I was to hire a carpenter, who would I hire? If I was back in the day, or kind of like what if Jesus was an auto mechanic? Hey, I really want to hire him. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Blake. Here's my next question for you. What has been the most difficult or challenging thing that you have experienced in running your business?
Yeah. So, and I had my notes over here too, but yeah, I think cash flow, I think, is probably one of the hardest things for us primarily as a contingent recruiting business. We don't invoice until we put somebody to work. So we do a lot of work unpaid, and then we hopefully put somebody to work, and then we get to invoice for them and collect on that invoice. So that can make it really difficult to forecast reliable revenues past like 90 days.
Yeah.
Because basically in the cycle, like you put someone to work, they accept an offer, and then they usually start that job within like 60 days or so.
Sure.
And so when you do that, it's really hard to reliably forecast beyond that. So for growth-based decisions, it's kind of hard to like forecast past that. And you can stack things up, but so that can make it a little bit difficult. And on our side, cash flow is probably the most challenging piece of it.
Okay. Understand that. So that is going on. I have a question here. What have you learned by running your business? So you've addressed something you learned in that aspect. Okay. We gotta deal with this. What would you say is one thing that you didn't know, or that you wish you knew that you didn't know when you got started into this?
Yeah. So I think it can be really difficult to grow the business without having reliable, forecastable revenues. So I think it's like directly related there. Yep. But I mean, there's a lot of things that, I kind of boned up on, like web development, and a very, very, very basic. So don't call me a web developer, but like some basic things there to be able to build, maintain, and grow using a website, for example, and your online presence. But yeah, I think on the, learned a lot about needing some good cash flows, basically.
Okay. With the, so the online presence, you say, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even with your basic website, and then getting on with other mediums. And so, how important specifically would you say your website is for your business?
It's pretty important, mostly as a marketing tool and an SEO driver. So, I mean, we do have our jobs posted online, and they do generate SEO positive or whatever it is traffic for us.
Yeah.
So that's good. We do get people that apply online to our jobs. It's pretty rare that the people that apply online to our jobs are people we end up placing.
Right.
However, it does make us appear in searches quite often. So a lot of time, like for example, this week alone, maybe, or this, I guess in the past couple of weeks, we have had a couple of inquiries that have purely been driven by people saying, I just typed into Google civil recruiting Texas, and up we popped, So that's awesome.
Man,
that's
so you've really become an SEO specialist. I mean, almost.
I don't know about a specialist, but an SEO dabbler, let's say.
Okay, that's great.
Enough to be dangerous, enough to understand what's important that needs to be on there, and enough to understand what works for SEO and what's just completely ineffective.
Right.
So, those are some things I've definitely picked up over time, just out of necessity.
Where do you see your business in 10 years?
In 10 years, right. I see us with an office on the north side of Houston with 10 to 20 employees serving clients across the country, and providing an excellent place for people to work where they are rewarded for their contributions in the near and long terms.
Kind of carrying over how you're working with your clients and also the recruitees, I guess you could say, kind of keeping that same dignity of a person across the board. Yeah. I like that.
I think justice would require it, right?
Justice would definitely require it. Okay, here's a question for you. We have a lot of young people here, okay? Getting ready, preparing for college. What advice first would you give to somebody as they are about to enter college? They're about to leave here. They're going on to college. And what advice do you have for those getting ready to pursue upper education?
I think if they can figure out, I would say if you can figure out something that you are going to be working towards, I think this is kind of like probably more of a teleological view, but meaning like, things are ordered for other things. Right. If you can figure out what it is that you want to do in the end, like when you graduate from college, I think that'll give a lot more meaning to what you're studying in college. And also a lot more meaning to the setting of priorities that you do for yourself, how you order your priorities throughout your college experience. I think that, and speaking from personal experience, if you have less of an idea of what you're doing after college, you kind of just meander. And
Got it. Okay.
Hopefully you have some structure in your life. Like at school for me, I was very busy doing full-time rugby for 4 years, full-time Corps Cadets at A&M for 4 years. And so that kept me very busy, and it was very structured, but I didn't really have in mind what I wanted to do after college,
right? Which
meant that the free time that I had was a little off doing different things that didn't necessarily help me stay on track.
But at least you got the discipline that you need to run your own business.
Yeah.
From the Corps, and
that was all. Yeah, that was all kind of. This is something I definitely learned about in the process, especially like managing your own time and ordering priorities. But I would say, if there's a good thing you have, because the thing is, you don't want to have wasted all your time in college and money, whoever is the one paying for this, whether it's being borrowed or parents paying for it or whatever. You don't want to have, gone through the whole process, wasting that kind of, time and resources, and then get out on the other side and wonder, okay, so like, what am I going to do now? Because it could be tough. It can be really tough to figure out what's next and to feel like the experience that you had serious meaning, because it's all right there. For me, I wish I would have had a little bit more forethought to really dig into my major, because currently I would have really been excited about studying political science at Texas A&M.
Right.
When I was in school, I wasn't that excited about it, mostly because I didn't have a view of what I really wanted to do after school.
Right.
So that's all.
Now, I'm a teacher. Obviously, I'm asking this for a reason. High school students, you remember when you were in high school, how important is it to focus on doing the work in school, even the stuff you're not interested in, even that stuff that some people would say, man, this is boring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some reason for it. I think I like G.K. Chesterton's approach to finding a brick wall in a forest, and that's basically that when you come across it, you don't immediately look at it and say, tear this thing down, get it out of the way. I think the first thing that you need to do is look at it and wonder, and maybe try to inspect why it might actually be there to begin with, because there might be a good reason that it's there. But anyway, so it's kind of the conservative versus the liberal traditions. But I think that the thing is that it's there for something, right? So let's start there. It's there for something. Why is that busy work there in front of you? So let's start there. And then, I don't know. And then I guess depending on whatever the subject matter is, it might not be the most interesting to you now. But, there's plenty of stuff that it's put in the education and in the curriculum for some reason. So I wonder what that is. Maybe let's ask those questions first before we dismiss them.
Oh, man, that's great. Last question I have for you is, what advice would you give to a young person? We have some people in this class who actually do want to be their own boss. They want to be their own entrepreneurs. What do you have for them?
I think, one of the things that I was thinking about is, there's this saying, read a lot of books, first of all. I think that it's really important. So, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is like one of my favorite books for just principle-based approach to life in general, but especially to business.
Right.
Good to Great by Jim Collins is great. E-Myth by, I think, Gerber is a good one. Checklist Manifesto by I can't remember who. These are ones that I think of when I think of, starting your own business and where do you start for sustainable growth over time.
Right.
So those are good. I think one just kind of bit of advice. Well, first off, it's not a bad thing to start in a large company environment before, going and venturing off to doing something else, because you don't know a lot. You just don't. So, it's not a bad thing to experience what a big, good, successful company looks like. Even if there's dysfunction, even if there's disorder within, it's not a bad thing to see what it looks like on the inside and how it operates in order to get the experience of what you maybe do want to do on your own or don't want to do on your own.
Right.
And then once you start to realize, I think I want to do this, don't be so focused on making it perfect before you launch. I think what they say is perfection is the enemy of done, or completed, or executed. Right. Never going to be perfect. And just as we as humans are journeying through life, becoming more perfect over time until we meet our Lord, and hopefully our answer is a complete, emphatic yes at that moment, we will not have business perfect before we launch. We have to set out. We have to, get what do they say? The, ships are safe in harbor, but that's not, sitting in the harbor is not what ships are made for.
That's right. That's right. So if I have this business idea and I keep trying to get all the funding for it and everything else, but I never launch, what have I done?
Yeah. You'll get your feedback pretty quick once you launch it. So, once you realize that you have something that can be profitable, so don't do anything crazy, like that's definitely going to sink you. But once you find that there's a general business plan that is viable for profitability, then it's okay. Maybe give it a go and then get the feedback and perfect over time.
Perfect. Well, Blake, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much for being with us and talking with the class here, even though it's not live. It was great having you on. And just with you, wish you nothing but success for the future.
Sure. Thanks, Uncle Larry. Yeah, I hope your students really, enjoy the entrepreneurship class and do great things.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Blake. Take care.